Testing, testing. Welcome back to session 2 here at the North American Hydrogen Summit 2021 from H2View. Our thanks once again to Charlie Freese for getting the session underway with his pre-recorded talk just now on the Hydrotech programme at General Motors. I'm delighted to say that Charlie will be joining us live for the Q&A panel at the end of this session. Now, however, it's time to hear from our next guests, namely Jackie Birdsall from Toyota North America, Joseph Capello from Iwatani, and Cody Bateman from Gen H2. We begin with Jackie Birdsall. Joining Toyota in 2012, Jackie has over 18 years experience in hydrogen, including 13 months at Toyota's global headquarters in Japan, working on the 2021 Toyota Mirai. Her current role is Senior Engineering Manager of the Fuel Cell Integration Group at Toyota Motor North America, Research and Development. Toyota's mission is to improve the quality of life by developing fuel cell solutions to replace gasoline and diesel engines. Jackie specializes in hydrogen infrastructure, high-pressure hydrogen systems, associated standards and regulations, while she also serves as a technical spokesperson for the Toyota Mirai, and, in addition to her hydrogen activities, she promotes STEM learning and diversity within the industry. She joins us today to discuss driving forward in hydrogen mobility. And without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand you over to Jackie.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Rob. Really appreciate it, and for everyone's time here today. I'm really honored to be a part of such an exciting panel. And, actually, I know many of the other panelists very well. So really, I think this is going to be a great session, and I look forward to the questions at the end of the panel. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. If I could just get some confirmation someone can see my presentation. Sounds good. Okay, well, Rob did an excellent job introducing me, so I feel like I do not need to go any further into my own introduction. But again, my name is Jackie. I am based out of our Los Angeles office, Gardena in particular, part of Toyota Motor North America Research and Development in the Fuel Cell Development Department, which I know is a mouthful, but pretty much it means that we do whatever we can in the research and development space to replace diesel and gasoline engines with fuel cell electric technology. And so why we do this? It's actually part of what we call Environmental Challenge 2050. And in this challenge, we're not looking just at the vehicles themselves, but at the entire infrastructure related to our transportation economy. And we have all these kind of 6 specific goals that we want to hit that include decarbonization and reduction in water usage, increase in recyclability, and my personal favorite, what we call harmony with nature, which means just reducing our negative impact on the planet. And so today I want to speak specifically to decarbonization of the vehicle fleet, as the panel is talking about mobility today. And so from Toyota's perspective, the way that we get to decarbonization is through electrification. And when I say electrification, I don't just mean one form of electrification. I mean a combination of fuel cell electric, battery electric, plug-in hybrid electric, and hybrid electric. And in making all of these options available to our customers so that they can choose the vehicle that best suits their lifestyle while helps them achieve their decarbonization goals. So for some customers, this may mean They never want to go to a hydrogen station or a gasoline station again. They want to just plug in at home. We have other customers that plugging in at home may not be an option. So they want a quick refilling time. They want a longer range. It's up to us to make all these options available so that our customers can achieve their goals. And I know we're talking about, there's been this big movement, a lot of excitement in the hydrogen space, more so than in my 18 years I've ever witnessed. So this is a really exciting time for the industry. But at Toyota, we began the development of fuel cell technology over 25 years ago. We actually started it at the same time as the Toyota Prius, which actually in Japanese means to go before. And it wasn't a quick transition to hybrid technology, right? Now, everyone hears Prius, they hear hybrid, and they're very familiar with the technology. It has a huge uptake rate. We have tons of customers buying these vehicles. It took us 10 years to sell the first 1 million vehicles. Now we sell 1.5 million annually. And we see fuel cell technology following a similar trend where it will take a while for us to get into the market, but once we're there, we're going to see a huge uptick. And any brand new technology is going to be inherently more expensive. That's just the way it works. But that doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a huge cost reduction. So here you can see the difference between, or a graphical representation between the first and the fourth generation Prius. What we saw between the prototype fuel cell vehicle and the first generation Mirai, which I'll get into shortly, was a 95% reduction in costs. And we're continuing to see those cost reduction curves from generation to generation to a point where we can get to a parity with gasoline vehicles. Which brings me to the first generation Toyota Mirai. And for those of you who don't know, Mirai in Japanese actually means the future. So again, Prius meant to go before, Mirai means the future. So to us, this was really a core technology and a huge part of our decarbonization strategy. And I assume most of the people that are attending this conference already know how a fuel cell works, but just in case you don't, this is a little diagram from our first generation Mirai. So it is a hybrid vehicle, but instead of having a gasoline engine, we have a fuel cell stack, which combines oxygen and hydrogen to create electricity that powers the electric motor. Obviously, instead of refilling with gasoline, we refill with hydrogen. It takes about 5 minutes to refill. Our current generation Mirai goes 402 miles on this fill. And then we combine that with the rest of the hybrid synergy drive system, which is the power control unit, the electric motor, and the battery. And this is something to keep in mind as we talk about the other applications beyond the light duty market, because really, it's not so difficult to swap in the fuel cell system and allow for that quick refilling time and to allow for fuel cell electric technology to be an option in many different types of platforms. And so between the first generation and the second generation Mirai, we had a lot of learnings. Of course, as I already mentioned, we reduced cost, we improved efficiency, we decreased the size of the stack. We're going to see that continuing trend into our next generation. What we've also done is we've improved our production capability by 10-fold, which means we can make many more fuel cell stacks than we did previously. And this opens the door to so many other options. And why did we increase production capacity? Because we have an incredible new product. This is the 2021 Mirai, which went on sale last year or earlier this year here in North America. It's a rear-wheel drive platform. So the first gen was front-wheel drive, second generation rear-wheel drive. It's a more luxurious platform. It's lower, longer, wider, more aesthetically pleasing. Customers really love this vehicle, and we've seen a huge customer demand in response to sales. We are tempered by the hydrogen infrastructure, which I'm going to let some of my colleagues on the panel and other people throughout this incredible conference speak to some of the challenges in the infrastructure space. But really, it is a close marriage between vehicle sales and hydrogen infrastructure. And so with this vehicle, we also increased the hydrogen capacity on board. So we have improved the range to 402 miles. Again, you can see here that we've moved to a rear-wheel drive platform. But also this new fuel cell stack that we're using to power this vehicle is one that we can use to power many other applications, which I'm going to get into. I already touched a bit on the hydrogen infrastructure. Currently in California is where the majority of the vehicles are sold in North America. We have 49 stations. We have intent to have up to 100 by the middle of this decade. We think that will really help to serve our customers, build redundancy, and address some of the issues that we're seeing with the current fueling infrastructure, which I'm happy to answer questions about later. But the beauty of this technology is that it's incredibly scalable, which means You can have a fuel cell that's small enough to power a phone, large enough to power a building, or anything in between. So back in 2017, we started this kind of skunk work project where we took 2 of the first gen Mirai you see here, and we put them in, took their systems out. We put them into a Class 8 semi to demonstrate that we could pull 80,000 pounds of goods using the exact same fuel cell system that was in our Generation 1 Mirai. And we took these to the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, called the Ports of LA. Why did we do that? Well, it's the 9th largest port in the world. It has 16,000 diesel trucks coming in and out every day, picking up goods from the marine vessels, taking them back to the rail yards. And because of this, the local air quality is significantly impacted, as well as the health of the communities, higher rates of cancer, higher rates of asthma. So we saw this as a gap, as a big opportunity for us to step in and remove these, diesel engines off the road and try to really improve the quality of life for the communities around the ports.
This is a story about a very innovative truck.
Here's a video.
A truck that cleans the air as it drives. And this story begins in a world where every day a steady stream of pollution is released into the air by over 2 million trucks as they transport goods across the country. So what if all those trucks did the same amount of work, but didn't pollute at all? This is Project Portal, a collaboration between Toyota and Kenworth to produce an emissions-free, heavy-duty semi-truck. Instead of a diesel engine, this Class 8 truck is powered by a hydrogen fuel cell electric system. As air flows through the front grille, oxygen is channeled to the fuel cell behind the cab. In this fuel cell, the oxygen is combined with hydrogen to create electricity. A lot of electricity. Enough electricity to drive a 560 horsepower electric motor that can propel the heavy-duty truck for up to 300 miles. All while emitting no smog, no soot, only pure water. In this world of big trucks, innovative technology can make them cleaner, quieter, and more productive than ever before. This is just the start of Toyota's vision for a world where innovative technology helps reduce our impact on the environment. This is Project Portal.
And let me tell you, that project just completely took off. And as with everything else in the decarbonization space, in the hydrogen infrastructure, or excuse me, the hydrogen industry, we can't do it alone. So we have this incredible group of partners that put in a total of $82 million into this project scope, partners listed here, to make sure that these first 10 trucks happened, and they are all on the road now, working in and around the ports, pulling again up to 80,000 pounds of goods, and doing that with 0 emissions, which is really phenomenal. We had originally 2 new heavy-duty stations, making a total of 5 heavy-duty station network throughout the Los Angeles area to support this, and 4 unique operators. And here in the back, I don't know if you can see it, but we actually have a Project Portal truck hauling Mirais to a dealership. So we have heavy-duty hydrogen fuel cell technology pulling our light-duty hydrogen fuel cell technology. And the drivers love it. It wasn't just about creating an innovative solution that would reduce diesel emissions, but also, again, creating this incredible product that people love to use. So real quick, I just want to show you guys a video that the demonstration how it goes to
Okay, let's go ahead and
many
look up the
people
trailer.
on this conference are familiar with, but imagine not having to deal with the transition of emission. Imagine having clean, quiet power, but also this technology. That's probably here. Our fuel cell electric
Stand by.
against diesel
And in 3,
pulling
2,
80,000.
1, go. And you're clear.
Okay, you're clear.
Same driver, same everything, just fuel cell electric technology. And it's a perfect complement to the light duty technology in that with this heavy duty technology, we're consuming about 10 times the amount of hydrogen on board that we do with light duty. That means that we're going to have a huge increase in our demand for hydrogen, which drives down the cost for hydrogen at the pump. Likewise, with light duty vehicles, we have many more light duty vehicles on the road, right? So we have a higher demand for the fuel cell stacks and the fuel cell systems themselves, which that increase of production of the fuel cell technology will drive down the cost. So the two are really synergistic in how they complement one another in reducing costs to get us to the mass scale that we're looking for to ensure hydrogen society. And again, I can't speak enough to how much excitement that this truck has generated and has really opened the door for us to look at other mobility applications where we need to, once again, decarbonize and replace gasoline and diesel engines with fuel cell technology. So other spaces that we're investigating include buses. Here you see a Sora bus that's operating around Tokyo, but this technology is something that can be easily implemented in the North American market as well, especially for those fleets that have a larger fleet that may not have the opportunity to recharge their fleet, that may not have the opportunity to build a substation or whatever. If they're looking for a quick refilling technology to get them the range that they need to fully replace what a conventional bus could do, fuel cell technology is an excellent option. And here again, this is just one fuel cell stack in this system that is fully replacing what typically is powered by a conventional diesel. We've also put one of our fuel cell systems into the Energy Observer that you see pictured here. This is a boat that is traveling around the world with zero carbon. It's really an incredible boat. If you ever get the chance to see it, I highly recommend it. But they are using one of Toyota's fuel cell stacks on board with electrolyzed hydrogen to help to power the vessel. I know it's not technically mobility, but we still kind of lump it into our mobility space as we're looking to do decarbonization across the board. And so for Toyota, when we think about decarbonization of the mobility space, that needs to include how we actually manufacture the vehicles, right? And so this is a fuel cell stationary unit at our Motomachi plant in Japan, where we build the Toyota Mirai. And it's part of a demonstration to move us towards decarbonization in our plants and all of our facilities globally. And if we want to scale that down, you can put a fuel cell into a forklift as well. And once again, these are operating at the Motomachi plant, so we have fuel cells building fuel cells. Another demonstration of fuel cell technology and mobility, this is called a utility tractor rig. This is another small cargo handling device that's operating at the port. We took, in this picture here, you can see a lot of diesel UTRs. You can imagine the implications of these guys running all around the port, thousands of them every day. We've taken one, we took out the diesel, we put in the exact same fuel cell system in the Toyota Mirai, and we're demonstrating it to the port officials to be able to say, hey, we don't just want to decarbonize the larger Class 8 trucks. There are opportunities here for replacing diesel and gasoline in so many different mobility applications. And finally, we've also partnered with Hino to develop an additional set of Class 8 trucks. So now our partnership has expanded beyond Kenworth with all of the excitement into Hino as well. And actually very recently we announced that we will be manufacturing the systems for these Class 8 trucks at our own TMMK facility, which means Toyota Motor Manufacturing Kentucky, here in the United States. And so with that, I want to wrap up and just say to everyone, share kind of a Toyota charge, which we call Start Your Impossible. And that's exactly what we did when we branched out of the light duty space into the heavy duty space, which typically is not something we have done previously. But looking for solutions, real world solutions for fuel cell technology in ways that we can improve the quality of life for everyone. So please, to everyone, take this as your charge going forward. Do what you can, start your impossible, and help us decarbonize the industry. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Jackie. We appreciate your time today. And what an immersive talk we've had there. Thanks very much. And we can definitely echo those calls around the Energy Observer boat. We've seen it, we've been on it, and it's fantastic. So if you do get the chance, jump at it. I'm sure we'll have more questions for you during our Q&A session. Now it's time to learn more about the infrastructure that will be so key to making this mobility pillar happen. First up to do that is Joseph Capello, Managing Officer of Iwatani Corporation of America. Joe joins us with a glittering career in the US and the global chemicals sector, having spent 8 years as a Wall Street analyst studying chemical companies, 15 years at Praxair, including as Vice President of North America Merchant Industrial Gas Products, and also as President of Praxair Asia, and 5 years on the private equity side of business in the field of energy logistics and Class 8 truck technology. He has now been in his role at Iwatani for 3 years, and the company has been busy building out its hydrogen fueling infrastructure ever since. Various partnerships, fueling stations, and other infrastructure have been revealed by the company in recent years, while it's also a key part of progressive plans for a hydrogen ecosystem in the city of Lancaster in California. So let's find out more. Joe, thanks for joining us today. It's over to you to tell us more about building out the hydrogen infrastructure.
Well, thank you very much, Rob. And we really appreciate the opportunity to have the chance to share a little bit about what we're working on. And I will try to echo what Jackie talked about in the exciting future for the mobility applications. So I'm going to also try and share my screen, and we'll see if it's working. Can you see it?
Yes, we can, Joe.
Okay, terrific. All right. Well, I'm going to attempt to put this on my larger screen here. Okay, so again, my name is Joe Capello, and I have the pleasure of presenting today and talking to you about the North American infrastructure build out for hydrogen. We're excited about this opportunity, and I wanted to maybe start by giving a little bit of background on how we even arrived to the conclusion that we should make the investment in the hydrogen infrastructure here in North America. I'd like to share that I'm wearing two hats on this call. One is as I manage the operations for our business for Iwatani in North America. I'm also the vice chair of the California Hydrogen Fuel Cell Partnership. And I'd like to encourage folks to take a look at the partnership because it really helped us gather information, meet with partners to think about the infrastructure, and ultimately helped us make the decision to invest. So if I can start with, maybe Iwatani may not be a household name to all of the folks that are participating today. So our company is based in Japan. We've celebrated 91 years, a relatively good-sized company of just over $6 billion of sales, and we've got just over 10,000 employees deployed around the world. We have 4 divisions. We call them the material division, the agro, bio, and food division, our industrial gases business, and the energy division. We are also Japan's largest producer and distributor of hydrogen. We have a vertically integrated platform. We import just about all of our raw material, which predominantly is LNG, which then becomes the feedstock for our hydrogen production facilities. We have several hydrogen plants around the country, liquid hydrogen plants, as well as gas transfills that enable us to be able to distribute and deliver hydrogen throughout the country. We have, in addition to the plants, but we have various degrees of transportation equipment, both liquid and gaseous hydrogen transportation equipment. And while the focus and excitement is around helping to transform and decarbonize the transportation sector, there are many industrial applications as well. Again, in the background, we have plants that are distributed around the country. A couple of exciting projects that we're involved with are looking at manufacturing green hydrogen, brown hydrogen, gray hydrogen, in a way that is able to capture and sequester carbon dioxide, creating a very low carbon intensity hydrogen. We've also invested as part of a consortium in a exciting transportation with the new liquid hydrogen carrier that is on its way from Japan to Australia as we speak. And the idea would be to be able to bring in extremely large quantities of hydrogen from Australia into Japan, but also looking at ways to perhaps do that from other destinations as well. An area that we'd like to kind of point out, perhaps I would imagine most folks understand what happened at Fukushima several years ago and the closure of the nuclear plant there. Well, Iwatani is part of a pretty large consortium that's converting that and reimagining that area into a CO2-free hydrogen production using renewable sources to generate hydrogen. So it's a pretty exciting project. So I mentioned all of this around the supply chain because it's all required to be able to support the mobility market that we have established throughout Japan. You saw in Jackie's presentation a bus at one of the Iwatani stations. Well, we have more than 35 and soon close to 50 stations throughout Japan where we will be able to fuel light, medium, and in fact, we are testing heavy duty as well. Okay, so as we looked at ways to expand beyond Japan, we're looking at markets throughout the world. And what I'd like to talk to you about is some of the things that went into the decision-making process for selecting California as one of those locations to participate in the infrastructure build-out. So Europe is certainly is an attractive market, huge momentum for sure, but we honed in on the California market. California, as we see it, if we're successful there, it's the fourth largest economy in the world, and it's a pretty substantial investment opportunity given California's commitment to decarbonization. So the first few areas that we focused on was what's going on with policy and how conducive is it to attracting capital. And of course, AB8, the Clean Transportation Bill, which allocates around $20 million per year over a 10-year period to build out 100 hydrogen fueling stations. So it's a great start. It was followed by Governor Newsom's executive order for building out 5 million zero-emission vehicles by 2030. And of that, there was also a discussion about expanding the number of stations to 200 hydrogen fueling stations by 2025. So again, a great step in the right direction. Of course, there's the low carbon fuel standard, and in the last grant funding opportunity, the hydrogen refueling infrastructure, so HRI, is another incentive to really create the platform for further investment. There's a lot more around this that I'll cover, but I wanted to just highlight some of the things that went into our decisions to enter and then further expand into the California market, as it's really the entry point for the United States. So in addition, and I'm sure you all know, the California Air Resource Board is an amazing area to pull information from. And so as we evaluated where and how large the market opportunity possibly could be, what were the driving forces, if you have a chance, download Andrew Martinez's latest update to the CARB Hydrogen Station Network self-sufficiency report that just came out. A lot of really helpful information in there to kind of share where we are and the outlooks. The range of outcomes are significant, from not very attractive or interesting to off the charts interesting. And every company probably has its own take on it, and our take is somewhere in the middle. But as we explored looking at investment and what it might take to build out, clearly there was a few things. One, the deployment of vehicles, fuel cell vehicles in California at a pretty significant rate. And then, of course, the station deployment schedule. So you'll notice on the timeline, it's fairly light from where we are today, and then you'll see the real impact from the last GFO of stations that are coming through the system and being commissioned. So we see a nice jump up to station development in the 24 timeline. As we evaluated, the trends in the stations and the desires of the station by the OEMs and by the economics of it all, there's a few things in here that you notice that the stations are getting bigger. So that's something I'm going to talk a little bit about more on the economic side. But then it's, where do you put the stations? And again, what we found in a critical success factor to infrastructure investment is really the contribution of all of the companies to really move this movement forward and supply information, lots of collaboration around where fuel cell vehicles are expected to be deployed. And of course, that is a driving force for where the station should be built out. I mention all of this again because there's a ton of information to help you make your investment decisions. So in 2019, Iwatani acquired 4 stations that had previously been built by Linde, and we announced or discussed the next phase of about 20 new hydrogen stations that are being planned in the 2 markets here, one in Northern California and Southern California. And no surprise, that's kind of where the heat map that I just showed you showed where the deployment would be. We are building out the station network in a sense that can accommodate light duty, medium duty, as well as heavy duty. And we have phases 2 and beyond coming behind this. Now, our view on this is that to be successful, we need to have the ability to be vertically integrated. And that's why I shared with you what we're doing in Japan. We feel that model will serve us well and help us serve the market through that strategy. And I'll talk more about that. But part of what Jackie said and what I'd like to reinforce is that there's the mobility market, of course, but building out the infrastructure is the enabling factor to adoption of fuel cells across many, many different applications. So it's a really busy slide, but in one fell swoop, we'll try to share with you, so how are we building out this infrastructure in California? And through a vertically integrated strategy, we call it the hydrogen ecosystem. And really what that is it's a series of concentric circles that are really clustered around each other, where we've got between 6 and 8 stations that we can then supply from regional supply points. And we feel that through this density model, we're able to economically supply the hydrogen, as well as get the distribution efficiencies from the density model. In addition to all of that, it's very source dependent. Folks will ask, are you looking at liquid or are you looking at gas? And the answer is we're looking at both. And it really depends on all of the factors that come into it, including what's the LCFS, what's the carbon intensity of the hydrogen, what's the distance. So all those factors come into play, and I'm sure some of that will come up on our discussion during the Q&A. So long story short, we have a density model, and we expect that through that, we can build out the lowest total cost of ownership as well as very high reliability, and then we can replicate. So here's an example of one of those circles within the DAISY, if you will. And we announced that we have a very exciting program with Toyota and Nel. We're building out a series of 7 stations in our first zone. We call them the Futurity stations, and these will be online in 2022. They're 800 kilogram a day stations, and they'll be able to serve customers with 2 dispensers at each location. So it'll be a step change from the current technology that we're deployed right now. I mentioned replication. So light duty and heavy duty markets, California being the first step, but there's lots of transportation corridors that we anticipate being able to serve. And as the expansion of hydrogen takes wave, as more and more states are developing their programs, we see an opportunity to continue to continue the hydrogen wave from west to east. So an overall part of decarbonization, obviously, is to identify and look for low carbon intensity opportunities to produce hydrogen. And so the industry has been evolving from this trend, through this trend, and we're participating in that. We have an exciting announcement that Rob alluded to. We are going to be able to secure product from Lancaster, California's exciting new renewable hydrogen project, and we will be distributing that through to our stations in Zone 1 that I shared with you. There's a picture here of the Toyota Class 8 vehicle that's run on fuel cells, and it's pulling hydrogen. So if you think about end to end, the very, very low carbon intensity, in fact, negative, it's pretty exciting. The biggest factors as we go through this are, we have to, as Jackie said, we have to overcome the reliability shortcomings that the industry has faced. We have to also look for the lowest total cost of ownership and also driving down carbon intensity. So I'm going to wrap up here. So what could possibly go wrong, right? All of the investments that we're evaluating, all the opportunities we're evaluating, what are some of the things that we all have to focus on? So Toyota, Jackie did an awesome job of sharing with you all of the different new transportation equipment that's coming out, the new Mirai, but heavy duty seems to be on a pretty good track from what all of the OEMs are talking about. One of the areas that frankly has a shortcoming is that we need more light duty fuel cell vehicle models to be announced. We've got the Nexo that's out there, and it's a great vehicle. And there's examples of other OEMs that are talking about their fuel cell vehicles. And as soon as we imagine that we have a much more robust and reliable hydrogen network here, we'll see the enthusiasm for more light duty vehicles coming through, which brings me to the second point, which is there's quite a bit of investment that has been made, and a number of the industrial gas companies, as well as new entrants to the market, have announced a lot more hydrogen coming in. So that's a breath of fresh air, but we also will need a significant amount more coming on. There's also the need for additional transportation equipment. It's also can be a limiting factor, and we point this out as both a risk but also an opportunity as we try to make clear to the world the demand generation that's coming in California, and that should lead to lots of interest for equipment manufacturers to bring their equipment, bring their technology to serve this market. We're also pleased with and expect there will be continued advances in station technology, which is critical for reliability and also to be able to really advance the throughput at the stations and make the customer's experience exactly what you would expect driving a fuel cell vehicle. And I would also have to say, we look forward to continued support to help the industry get through the growing pains and to advance the opportunity for further deployment of all of the investment that's required to get us where we have to go. So with that, I just want to reinforce that along with just probably every company that's attending, Iwatani is committed to decarbonization, and we feel that these types of investments are doing exactly what we have committed to. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to joining the panel with the very esteemed guests that have been invited. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. Great to hear about all of those developments and indeed ambitions. And thank you to yourself for taking the time out today. As I said to Jackie, I'm sure we'll have questions for you during our Q&A session. Also joining us to talk about hydrogen infrastructure today is Cody Bateman, Chairman and CEO of GenH2, our headline sponsor. GenH2 is a leading developer of liquid hydrogen infrastructure solutions in the US, while Cody himself is an entrepreneur who has founded several startups, including Advantex Research and Cryotech. GenH2 is the commercial arm of these research and engineering powerhouses, with a focus on the mass production of multiple solutions in the liquid hydrogen infrastructure. Anyone watching H2View's Project Perception Change webinar just last month will be familiar with Cody and indeed his passion for hydrogen and getting that infrastructure in place. But today he has a very distinct message to offer as he tells us 3 things we need to see in the US. Cody, it's over to you.
Let me get my video going. Video is not showing up, unfortunately. Can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you, Cody.
Okay, so here it goes. Thank you. My video is just not coming up. And let me share my presentation as well. So thank you again for the introduction today. What we'd like to do is quickly go over some of the
Cody, we can see you, so hopefully now we can hear you in just a second.
Okay, it looked like my shared presentation did not go up. So let me bring that up right now. Share it. There you go. So you should be able to see my screen as well.
Yes, we can indeed. It's all looking good.
Excellent. Thank you. So once again, thank you very much for inviting us here today. This is an exciting time for us. As was mentioned, one of the things that we are doing at H2View is promoting the whole hydrogen economy. And so instead of today talking about GenH2 specific technologies, what we'd like to do is further advance the concepts of what we've been discussing since last March. And those are the 3 primary things that we need to see in North America to actually enhance the mobility environment here. And so let me go to the next slide here. And what we're seeing is there's 3 primary things. And one is something that's been addressed in the earlier conferences today, especially by Mark Kirby. The last mobility session, we were talking about permitting, primarily in Canada. But we're going to talk about briefly about the need for easier permitting and therefore also education in the United States. And so we're seeing a lot of advances in permitting and education in other parts of the globe, but a lot of that is falling behind here in the States. We'll be addressing that shortly. We've also are going to talk briefly about the increased need of partnerships within the industry. So what you saw with Jackie and Joe just speaking previously is talking about how the companies are starting to get together and increase these partnerships. These partnerships have largely been between people inside the larger manufacturing spaces. And really, to make the entire hydrogen economy take off, these partnerships need to extend down to smaller and boutique type infrastructure companies. And then the last one we'll won't spend a whole lot of time on, but the concept about incentives and tooling for mass production, not just for the stations at large. So let's go jump in directly into the easily permitting. So what I wanted to show here is this great slide by NREL. It's one of our partners. We do a lot of work with NREL in the past at Gen H2. And what you'll see here is a map of all the different stations crossing over the United States. So we've been focusing heavily on, as the industry in the state of California, but quickly as the Class A trucks roll out and the need for these stations roll out, we're definitely going to need a lot more stations across the United States so that the hydrogen economy can actually be truly realized. But the key important part here is that every station is not the same. As you saw with the Iwatani presentation, there's multiple different sizes and shapes of these stations. Some of these are micro stations that are only capable of filling up 4 to 5 cars per day. The other stations can be extremely large ones for these truck stops that you'll see crossing the United States and making the difference there. So it's very important for us to understand the permitting for these are going to be different. But where can we get similarities within these stations is really where it's going to help drive the hydrogen economy over the next 3 to 4 years. And that's one thing Gen H2 will be working with. A number of the people that are sponsors at this event is working on certain sets of standards, codes, guidelines for all the states. So the goal there is if somebody goes into mass production, which is absolutely critical for us to get to the point where we need to be by the 2030 deadline, it'll be easier for the infrastructure to be built out across the United States if we have a standard set going forward. So part of that, a key part of the permitting and making sure that there are standards and codes and guidelines across the entire United States, that actually includes Canada, which I believe is leading the charge in some of the permitting at a national level and pushing all the way down into Mexico. So it is truly a North American solution we're going to be looking at. But that's going to require a lot of building the hydrogen advocacy within the state and local offices. And so those offices, especially at the local level, outside of California, really have not heard too much about the hydrogen economy and that it's coming to them. And so how do we get to there? Well, the simple solution is through education. And so, as I mentioned, many local governments are very hesitant to add stations. So everybody attending this summit today understands, the safety of hydrogen and how it can be significantly safer than even gasoline or diesel. But some of that education has to go out to the smaller levels, to the smaller cities and counties. And so we have to take a multi-leveled approach to our education. And so first of all, it is going to be required nationwide. So I believe the education set up for some places, which has been successfully done in California, needs to be rolled out to other places sooner than later. Secondly, it's the initial education has already started. So we can leverage a lot of the education that's already been put in place. Summits, all the hydrogen conferences people are going to, there's a lot of great material out there that I'm hoping that we can get together under partnerships, combine this information from all these companies that are working in this space to further educate people throughout the United States and all of North America. The third one is something that we really haven't seen much outside of some city council meetings inside the state of California, and that's really having public forums. And so really the focus of going out to these public forums and allowing individuals who may have hesitancies toward the hydrogen economy, allow them to ask questions, much like we'll have a Q&A after this session. We need more people, more lay people that do not really understand this to be able to ask questions and answer them. We're going to grow as a company and as a hydrogen economy group as we listen to people and address those fears. The next part is a true public-private promotions and education. And so what we mean by that is that the US government, the DOE, which we've recently signed a contract with, is doing a great job granting new awards out, getting some of the hydrogen awareness out there. But we need to take some of that and couple that with some of the private promotions. And so what this would mean would be some of the larger oil and gas companies, many of the companies sponsoring the events today, all get together and come up with a concise, clean educational program to go forward. And lastly, what I would like to bring up is something that's near and dear to me, was the educating of our youth. So one of the things we're doing at Gen H2 with our new corporate headquarters being built is a whole layer of our headquarters building is designed for education. And as we looked at this, it made me think back at my youth, back in the 70s, when NASA actually did a true road show across the United States to high schools and elementary schools everywhere, talking about the space shuttle, years and years before the first thing it took out. And what was achieved through that is we had the youth of America, the people that would be driving the cars in the future here, will be the ones that will be able to say, we saw the hydrogen economy when it first started. Even though we've been doing this actively since 2003, only now is that 2030 goal seems to be able to be realized. And so one of the things that we're going to be promoting within our company and working with hopefully a number of partners here at the show is how do we get this road show going? Who should all be involved? And how do we get the youth of America excited about this upcoming economy? The second main point on really how to make the mobility piece specifically to go forward is partnerships within the industry. So we are currently working with a number of companies to do this, to pull it together. Some of these companies have been in the hydrogen space for decades and decades. And so the key thing here is coming up with best practices. So it's great to have summits like this. It's great to go to conferences. But I think as a group, and we are starting to see that in the Hydrogen Council and a few other places, where best practices need to come together and be shared with this. One of the things that we have noticed, there's not a whole lot of competition right now inside of certain parts within this hydrogen economy. And so there's no really competitive advantage to holding back some of these best practices. And so we're currently working with 4 or 5 companies. We're hoping to extend that to 20 or 30 over the next year, understanding the best practices. The same thing's true for safety. So the safety issues, once again, shouldn't be proprietary. This is something that's going to be critical for us, especially when we're educating and working with states outside of the state of California and move out into Mexico, is understand the safety issues and how's the best way for us to communicate that safety parts, to these local people, because there is going to be a concern. We know that for a fact. If you're all on social media as much as I am, you'll start seeing that that's one of the key concerns about holding back hydrogen, and be able to educate people and coming up with safety issues and solutions, especially if it comes across numerous companies across the US and the globe. It's going to help that solution significantly. Consortiums, we're already starting to see that a lot. There's more and more people attending these conferences. The World Hydrogen Council is just doing a phenomenal job getting things together. Every time I see these meetings come up like this and like this summit, more and more people are showing up. More people watch it, not only live, but also recorded later, a little bit later. And also the media is starting to start taking attention to that too. And we'll get to that in a second. The fourth point on the partnerships that we're really pushing for is a unified infrastructure plan. And what we mean by that is if you go to a typical gas station today, you know pretty much the experience you're going to see. You know what the layout looks like and what is needed on square footage. Now, as I mentioned before, we do have multiple sizes and shapes and different types of hydrogen infrastructure stations that will be going in. Some are pure gaseous, some are liquid, some are a combination of the two. You'll see that going forward. But coming up with a unified infrastructure plan and explaining where stations should be located, and we work together so that you don't necessarily have hydrogen stations across from each other like you would have in between an Exxon and a Shell station in a small area, but coming up with a plan that actually expands the reach of hydrogen across the nation as quickly as possible, I think is going to be very unique. That's where we're looking forward to working with like the map with NREL and other companies about figuring out where's the best place to put some of these stations in the future. Now, all that being said, there's always going to be government involvement in this. We're not going to get around it. It's, especially when we're talking about mobility and transportation. So the key next step then is looking at lobbying efforts. Now, while there's some lobbying efforts already out there currently, there's going to be a whole lot more. And it's going to take time and money from a lot of us in the industry to push this forward. So once again, we could take advantages of meetings like this to pull together. And as we do more live events, I'm sure we're going to see that more, where the companies can actually get together and discuss what is the best way to approach lobbying efforts, both once again at the national and the state level. It's going to be critical. The next point is media coverage. And so it's been interesting to see the spikes in media coverage associated with the hydrogen economy, but it's still not as much forefront as it should be. So luckily there's publications like H2View that's going out there and getting the articles together, the speakers together, and giving everybody a chance to touch the industry. They've been pivotal for our growth at Gen H2 because they've really been able to get our word out. We're going to need to see that grow into more of a media coverage to the normal media, you should say, more talk shows, more TV specials on it, as well as in print. And the best way to get that, is my last point, is local events. And so we've been able to attend a couple of events in different states where we've been able to have small booths or conversations with people where we know that ultimately hydrogen stations should go into. And it's amazing, especially when you go outside of California, go through New Mexico, Texas, and Arizona, you'll start at people saying, well, they don't even know that hydrogen cars even exist. And so only through these local events, and hopefully working with companies like Toyota, they can bring the Toyota Mirais out and say, look, these aren't dream cars of the future. These things actually exist today and are mass produced. It's a pretty exciting time. But these local events is something that we should all get together with as an industry to provide support and services to these. The next one here is, I love this circle diagram from energy.gov that we use quite a bit. And what I like about it, it shows that you have all these different roles within the hydrogen economy: the production, the fuel cells, the vehicles, technology validation, et cetera, some of the safety, which I just mentioned, in codes and standards. But what I like about this image more than anything, in the center of it, you have systems integration. So many of us come from different areas and have different expertise, including maybe even IT. And IT is a great example for us to use here. Just like in IT, no one company can do everything alone. This wheel is too large. And for us to be truly successful rolling out the hydrogen economy, we're going to need systems integrators. These companies will come in and they will be working with a number of us in the partnerships and groups to pull this together. And the system integration teams can do a lot more than just helping negotiate contracts, negotiating new filling stations that'll be going in throughout the US and all of North America. But they can also help us on the media and the communications as well, getting the word out and explaining how this is a very, very complex solution. So it's not just fuel cell vehicles. We've talked about fuel cells, we've talked about infrastructure, but even inside of infrastructure, there's a lot of complexities in there. Do we stick with gas? Do we go to liquid, which is what we believe the ultimate feature is going to be, is we'll be moving to a more of a liquid solution. When do you use one? When do you use the other? And all this can be done through cooperations. And so cooperation does work. We've seen that in the IT industry. We've seen that in other industries as well. And once again, it goes back to partnerships and getting together and having people be able to speak and having conferences like this outside of just the hydrogen industry, but actually moving it to other industries as well. But the cool thing I like about this more than anything, especially what we've seen at Gen H2 over the last 6-8 months, is that these partnerships really inspire action. And what I mean by that is when you go into a true partnership with a larger company or even a smaller one, smaller vendors, you start setting up deadlines and timelines, and you have your Gantt charts and your people are starting to work together. My employees feel more invigorated every day when we have a new partnership and they're working with new people inside the industry. It seems like our partners are the same way, that there's a lot going on and they seem more enthusiastic, but also there's more of a desire and a need to get things done on time. 2030 is going to be here very, very soon. As we're moving forward, it's going to take 2 to 3 years for some of this infrastructure is in place and actually gets built up. So the time is now. Time is now for us to inspire this action and move things forward. And Gen H2 is going to be here to help our partners do that exact thing. The last topic I wanted to discuss is not as lengthy as the other ones, but it's something that has been addressed in this conference so far. And basically, we've all seen it. Anybody that's in the fabrication and manufacturing space, so we're starting to see the shortages of specialized parts. The bottom line is there's a few key components that are made in very, very small quantities today. And we have to find ways to roll out more of these smaller parts to make it everything to be more successful, because we can't roll out 200-300 stations if there's only 50 or 60 parts that are needed across all of them. And so what we need is to create a true infrastructure bill and start looking at government support and more grants and everything to talk about the core infrastructure piece, not just say by production level and actually have it on stations, but more incentives at the state and local level, which incent people to create manufacturing sites to get this going. We're very fortunate, our new headquarters in Florida, we were able to get some incentives from the state, but there needs to be a whole lot more. More and more companies are going to need to get to mass production. And this is very difficult. We have made a lot of strides during COVID. There was some questions in a previous session where people were asking, well, has COVID really slowed you down? And we actually seen the opposite. What we have seen is this time frame, especially doing more conferences online, we've been able to have greater reach. We've been able to talk to more and more people. It's enabled us to actually pull back in as well and do some advanced engineering on our side and optimize some of the manufacturing processes so we can get to mass production. One of the issues that you're seeing just recently, of course, is the supply chain issues. And that's probably going to be continuing for some time now, but we are going to be working with sponsors on that. We're also doing more interesting things too by looking at new types of 3D printing. So if there's certain objects and stuff that are done in small productions, how can you bring that in-house, and how can we take those devices and actually resell them to other infrastructure companies as well? So increasing this production, we can do it in-house. We can actually work with other vendors, and then ultimately collaborate on mass production as we move forward. So that's going to be a very important piece as well. So that being said, we always go out there. We are asking people, help build the hydrogen economy with us. We do that both in discussions like today, as well as outside the industry, as well as with state and local governments. And so this is a very, very exciting time. We really do appreciate everybody coming in and listening to these sessions today, and hope that we can talk to you soon and help us power the hydrogen economy. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks again, Cody. Some great calls to action there, and it's a pleasure, as always, to have you with us. We're delighted to have you on the panel for the session. We're also pleased to have Charlie Freeze join the panel live now. Welcome, Charlie. And that means it's time for our Q&A session. This is your chance, viewers, to put your question to our panel. And I can see some of you have been busy already, so let's start to get into those questions. First one we have, I think, actually is for Jackie Birdsall. I'm pretty sure this question came in while you were on air, Jackie. It relates to a stationary unit in Japan that you referred to in your talk. And the question was, is this from hydrogen? Is the hydrogen from electrolysis?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. I actually don't know the answer to that. Let me look into that and get back to you.
Absolutely. We'll come back to you on that one, perhaps. Let us know when you're ready. Okay. A question for Cody, actually, hot on the heels of you talking just then. I know we kind of discussed this before in the Project Perception webinar. It just struck me there amidst your calls to action. Do you think we need to raise the profile of hydrogen even further? Do we need to make it the new normal almost? Because is it a case of availability with hydrogen, or is there an argument around profile, perception, and desirability? Do we need to make it something the public aspires to rather than perhaps sees as wrongly, but a guinea pig technology?
No, absolutely. So it's interesting you bring that up, because one of the perceptions we're trying to break, is a hydrogen car completely separate, and Jackie brought it up with Toyota. You can use the same fuel cell for cars, for Class A trucks, as well as other things as well. But ultimately, most hydrogen vehicles are electric vehicles ultimately. And it took years, if not decades, for electric cars to take over. But now if we talk about converting existing vehicles, and we talk about, transit, trains, and trash, those are our big three we're going to, right? Take things that can be electric that are more likely to have hesitations due to battery weight. How can hydrogen take it to the next level? But we do need to allow it to the next level and show that, this is not truly new technology. The fuel cells have been around a while. People are accepting electric vehicles now. And now it is just about building out the infrastructure and helping this move to the next level.
Sure, that's great. Thanks very much for taking that one there, Cody. We'll come to Joe for a moment. This was a question that came in during your talk. There's a question, do you have plans for heavy duty hydrogen stations? Because the observation made here is that an 800 kilogram per day station doesn't give much freedom to fill many heavy duty trucks. What would you say to that?
It's a great point. We're outfitting our stations to be able to accommodate all of the mediums that we need to. And we do think that our stations that are doing the 800 kilogram during the day, that will be predominantly used by light duty customers. But there's an overnight opportunity as well to work with the operators and OEMs to do overnight fueling for getting greater utilization of some of those stations as well. In the works, we are building out a 1,600 kilogram station in Fontana as part of the GFO phase, batch one. And there we'll have the ability to fuel all light, medium, heavy duty. Beyond that, we see 1,200 kilogram to 1,600 kilogram opportunities to build out for the heavy duty stations. And stay tuned. Yes, Iwatani is definitely involved with heavy duty. And we'll have some more to talk about that. But I don't want to be coy. The answer is yes. We're going to be building out heavy duty stations in California and advancing into other states as well.
Great, thanks, Joe. And you heard it here first. Sorry, Jackie, over to you.
Yeah, no worries. I just wanted to add to what Joe just mentioned. Certainly there's huge opportunities for co-locating for light duty and heavy duty, but really what we're seeing right now is our light duty customers don't fuel where the heavy duty drivers fuel, right? They drive in different locations, they drive different routes, they refill in different locations. So it would be great to take advantage of both where applicable, major interstates, truck stops, stuff like that. I fill at a station that's just down the street here in, a really highly urbanized residential locations where trucks aren't even allowed. So there still is going to be a bifurcation of light duty refueling stations and heavy duty, as well as a combination thereof.
Okay, that's great. Thanks.
And Rob, if you don't mind, I'd like to add to that. I mean, Jack, that's a great point. So one of the things that we actually see in happening in the near future is you already have a lot of the large big box stores already using hydrogen forklifts that Jackie brought up. Why not have a small station there? Many of them have gas stations already, but you have a small station there. So you're actually bifurcating exactly, but maybe not for heavy duty trucks, but for your forklifts as well as consumer stuff. One of the things we're also working with and doing research with is for buses. So school buses are ideal hydrogen vehicles. And, Jackie brought that up. Toyota's working on those. So you can imagine schools that actually have a small station for their school buses where mail trucks could also use it, as well as parents when they come pick up their children. So there is going to be this merge of these phenomenal stations coming up in the near future.
That's
You know,
great.
Rob,
Thanks.
if I can add one more thing that,
That's you,
as both Cody and Jackie pointed out, you know, we have to envision these stations have to be designed for the appropriate customer experience. So the light duty stations that we're imagining and deploying will continue to evolve to meet the expectations and requirements for the light duty market. And I can see pretty significant advances in technology that are going to make that experience, you know, way beyond what the experience is today. But on the heavy duty side, just to get back to the original question, you know, there's a particular customer experience that's required there as well, is to be able to get the drivers on the road faster, and so get them in, get them out, partner with lots of different opportunities with truck stop developers, as well as just greenfield locations to accommodate, as well as working in near the ports and perhaps even on operator locations, as Cody mentioned. So I just think that, you know, it's just a massive opportunity, and we've got a white sheet of paper here to work with everybody to really advance this.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, everyone, for the contributions. There's some great discussion going on. I wonder if we could pull Charlie into this as well, because Charlie, we've had a question related to your presentation and how you differentiated the uses for hydrogen as heavy duty and electric as light duty. Perhaps we could bring you in on this and discuss those different areas.
Sure. Well, light duty is a tough place to bring hydrogen in as a starting point. What you end up with is a situation where there's already a very good electrification solution with battery electrics. It's actually much more efficient, over 93% efficient. And the best that you'll see the fuel cells pulling is about in the 60% range to maybe 67%. So for those applications that are light duty in nature, like your everyday driver, most of those customers can be very well suited by an electrified vehicle that uses batteries, because most of the time the vehicle is actually sitting stationary and it has access usually to a place where you could charge. That's not the case when you start talking about heavy duty customers, because they make their money when the wheels are turning. They don't make the money when they're parked. And those applications with the heavy load is where the fuel cell with the increased energy storage density of hydrogen can really shine. So not only does that provide the customer reason for purchase, the value equation, because I mean, in the end, if it doesn't make sense to the customer, they're not going to buy them. You can't make them buy them. So you have to solve a problem. You have to look at it as a business. It needs to be economically driven, and they have to have a way that they can get a return on that investment. And what we see is that these big trucks, not the trucks that are hauling potato chips and half empty Amazon boxes, but the ones that haul really heavy cargo, steel, liquids, things like that. That's where the advantages of hydrogen are accentuated. And these are customers that frequently travel knowable routes, or they have fleets that refuel in centralized locations. And this makes the entire infrastructure problem much more manageable, because in that kind of a scenario, you can start to invest and size the infrastructure investment to match the fleet size. And that's a really great way to unlock the value of hydrogen. Bring the costs down, get it down so even today it can start to compete with the petroleum alternatives, and that can give you a reason for purchase. Once that infrastructure starts rolling out, that'll have synergistic effects for these other adjacent markets, and you can start to think about, you mentioned light duty and heavy duty refueling at the same location. That's a little bit tough, but it's not hard to think about a place where a fleet of heavy duty trucks refuels, having synergies with, like you said, forklift fleets. I think Jackie, you might have mentioned it, or Cody. Forklift fleets are a great synergy for that, because warehouses and manufacturing plants where the trucks come in, that's the same place that the forklifts will refuel. But the trucks also go to ports. They also go to rail yards. They also go to airports. And these are other applications where you can get a big advantage out of a hydrogen infrastructure. And this intermodal transportation provides those nodes where one investment can actually service multiple transportation modes. And that's where you really start to unlock the value of this. And that, I think, will be the tailwind to the hydrogen infrastructure, when those things start to play together and you can make one investment and you can benefit multiple customers, multiple users at the same time. That'll bring the cost down, that'll bring the hydrogen, make it much more affordable. And then you can start to look at some of these other markets moving downstream into smaller vehicles as well.
That's great. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for that very considered response there for us. Let's come to the subject of training. We discussed perception. We discussed some of the availability around that hydrogen, but let's look at training. We've got a question that was originally aimed at Cody. Where are training courses available? Is there any activities in this area around hydrogen at the moment?
Well, currently we actually do have a training class in Florida that we've given to a couple of the major oil and gas companies. We will be expanding that over the next year. Have a great curriculum, including in-person as well as video training, which we had to do due to COVID. So feel free to reach out to us. What we're hoping to do is, like I said earlier, with the partnerships, working especially with Shell, been a great partner with us. We're hoping to be able to roll these out more nationwide and provide online training classes, because there is actually a huge need at this point. But come to us, reach out to our team, and we'll figure out something if anybody does need the training.
Well, that's great. Thanks, Cody. And Jackie, I wonder if you'd have anything to say on this, given your kind of STEM and diversity activities as well that we discussed earlier.
Yeah, we do a ton of outreach and training, education. It really is key. I totally appreciate everything that Cody was saying about, especially teaching the next generation. One of my favorite moments was I just happened to be walking behind this, I would guess maybe like 12-year-old-ish, somewhere around there at the LA Auto Show, and he was talking to his dad, and he's like, "Dad, we need to go see the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. There's, one at the Toyota booth and one at the Honda booth, and they're incredible. And you refill with hydrogen. It takes a few minutes, and they're all electric." And like hearing this young man explain to his father hydrogen and fuel cell technology right before actually I was supposed to go meet with a bunch of journalists on it. I'm like, cool, the message is getting out, right? Like these kids are going to be the future. They're going to improve what we're creating now and make sure that we're not decarbonizing just part of the fleet. Charlie said, yeah, battery electric vehicles can meet, the needs of a lot of light duty customers, but we're not interested in decarbonizing just part. We need to decarbonize the entire fleet, which means fuel cells need to be a part of the light duty solution as well. And so, yeah, we have programs to, provide outreach to high school students up through our co-op program, where we actually have interns that we bring into our fuel cell group here in Gardena, and train engineers as well. So we have a lot of options. There's also some great resources for first responders that are available, a lot of safety resources as well to help people understand the implications of how to safely handle hydrogen.
That's great. Thanks, Jackie. And I also wanted to ask you earlier, but I thought I'd save it for the Q&A. With that STEM and diversity side of things that you're very passionate about, do you feel we need to drive more forward with female representation as well in hydrogen?
It's actually interesting. I will say, I think that, alternative fuel space, decarbonization space, there seems to already be more of a presence of women than there is in the traditional automotive. And actually that's been fun for me to, get into the Class 8, into the heavy duty industry now, because it is significantly more male dominated than the alternative fuel space. It takes everyone. I love the saying, anywhere where a decision is being made, there should be a woman present, and I'm all for that. And absolutely, it helps to target women to help to introduce them to the technology and get their ideas as well. We don't want to leave 50% of the brain power in North America on the table, right? It's going to take all of us to get to our decarbonization goals and solve the real crisis right now, which is climate change.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Jackie. I can see we're running out of time, so perhaps we'll just have a quick fire question for each of our panelists now. Just to really quickly sum up, we'll go round the round robin here. What's the single one, biggest thing we perhaps need to really realize our mobility pillar aspirations? And we'll start with you, Jackie.
Cool, I get to take that one first. Man, well, speaking just from us specifically, we have an absolutely incredible product. Customers love the Mirai. I love my Mirai. I think Joe alluded to it as well. Infrastructure we really need infrastructure, and that's getting to decarbonized hydrogen. It's getting the actual dispensers in the ground. It's making sure that we are giving everyone access to drive zero emission vehicle technology. So I would say for me, it's all about the infrastructure.
That's great, thank you. And we'll move to our other vehicle manufacturer, Charlie, for General Motors. What's the single most important thing in your view?
Well, a lot of things need to happen right. If I had to just try to tie it all back to one thing, I guess I would say consistency in policy. Right now, all of the things that we're talking about rely on a lot of decisions that take years to implement. And so that means whether it's incentives or other structures or continuity around the way investments are being made, there needs to be some consistency, and that continuity's just got to last long enough to get through that period. I'm confident these technologies all have roles to play, and they're not only necessary, but they'll be in demand, but it takes time to get them there, and that's the key.
Sure, thank you very much. And we'll move more to the infrastructure perspective now. Joe, how about you? What's your takeaway from this?
I'll try and combine what Jackie and Charlie just said. We definitely need a predictability. We have to be able to de-risk the projects. If we can de-risk projects, then the capital flows will come. There's lots of pent-up interest coming in, but the way to attract capital is to be able to kind of chart a course and be confident that the investment you're going to make is going to be able to generate the cash flows that you're predicting over this term of the investment. That's how you're going to get these investments passed. That's how we're going to get to the off ramp that California is looking for having a self-sufficient industry. So charting a course, having broader acceptance and support. Executive orders are great to kind of kickstart things, but you can't run with executive orders. We need a groundswell of support that's going to get behind this, lock in, and then companies will deploy the capital. It will attract lots of investment, and we can build out the infrastructure that's required to enable all of these applications.
Great, thanks very much. Good call to action there, Joe. And finally to you, Cody, your concluding thoughts?
Absolutely. So all the panelists were dead on. The key really is consistency. That was going to be my number one takeout on this, because once we know that things are consistent, not just in California, but nationwide in all of North America, then we can actually start the mass production, which is really the next step after that. And it's hard to get into mass production mode if things are going to be changing back and forth, and we have to change due to regulations if the regulations are different. So consistency is key. And that actually leads into, like I said, mass production, which goes to the infrastructure, which Jackie brought up. So all this stuff ties together. It looks like we're all aligned on the next steps. So Rob, once again, thank you for having us today.
Thank you, Cody. And I'm afraid that's all we have time for in session 2. After we better understood the role of the policy pillar in realizing North America's hydrogen vision this morning, now we've got to grips with both the progress being made and the challenges that lay ahead in the mobility pillar of this vision. And there's still a lot of road yet to travel. Our thanks once again to our session 2 speakers, Charlie Freese of General Motors, Jackie Birdsall of Toyota North America, Joe Capello of Iwatani, and Cody Bateman of Gen H2. We'll now enjoy a break in proceedings for an hour, which gives us all plenty of opportunity to grab refreshments, check those emails, and take a screen break. We do, however, have a number of promotional booths to check out on the platform during the break. And if you'd like to hear more from Cody and Gen H2 in particular, then head over to the Gen H2 demo room right now, because I know he has plenty to share with you and he looks forward to seeing you all there. If you did experience some problems during the Q&A session, I can assure you all of that will be available all over again on demand once the event is concluded. I'll see you back here in around an hour for session 3, the power pillar. See you then.